The latest NBC News poll came out with quite a bit of fanfare over the weekend with a check on the mood of the country, President Trump's job approval, how he's handling the economy, the partisan divide, right track, wrong track, all the normal questions. Our senior economics reporter, Steve Leisman, joins us now with a breakdown of the results. And we'll listen to Steve, and then maybe I'll give you my breakdown.
Okay.
Can we
and then I'll give you all the numbers, and I'll tell you why at the end I think they matter or don't. Does that work?
Oh, boy.
And then I'll give you the numbers about
And then I'll give you the numbers.
And then I'll say
and
whether
then I'll
they
say,
matter
or if we keep
not.
going here, Greco's going to have a coronary. 7 weeks into office, President Donald Trump sports his highest approval rating ever, driven by strong, almost unanimous Republican support, modest support from independents, and little from Democrats. But the president's economic approval has taken a hit here. The latest NBC poll showing President Trump's approval rating at 47%. That is a personal best for the president, up 4 points from when he left office in 2021. 51% disapproving of the job he's doing, down 4 points. Pollsters point out, however, that his numbers are relatively weak for a president in the first months of office. By contrast, the president's economic approval rating sank to 44%, compared with 55% in 2020. Disapproval up to 54 from 41. One of the first times, by the way, his economic approval was lower than his overall approval. So the president starts his term underwater on the economy, below where he began his first term. His numbers, however, are much better than during most of President Biden's term. More Americans in this poll rate the economy as just fair or poor than in the CNBC poll we did in December. By contrast, 44% say the country is on the right track, up 17 points from the November NBC poll, and the highest level I have since 2011. Joe has since 2004. We can come back and talk about that later. When it comes to key economic issues, the public is net negative on President Trump's efforts to reduce prices. 43% are very or somewhat satisfied that he's doing enough to deal with inflation. 55% unsatisfied. Respondents disapprove of DOGE by a 41 to 47% margin, and of Elon Musk by a larger 39 to 51% spread. But the president's immigration policy is getting strong support. On tariffs, the most important one perhaps for our viewership, results were mixed. 41% say his tariff policies are bringing the right change. 38% say the wrong change. 18% see no change. And pollsters are telling us that most of those who see no change are likely disapproving of the tariff policies. They tend to be more Democratic than Republican. 49% of respondents believe CEOs of large corporations are too supportive of the president. 12% say too critical. 29% say they're dealing with it in the right way. And, of course, Democrats should not take any heart from this poll. Their positive image rating dropped to an all-time low of just 27%. Only Russia and Vladimir Putin had lower ratings than the Democratic Party among those asked about in this poll. It was much lower on Putin and Russia. But I'll tell you why I think this matters or not for our viewers, investors out there. The only thing I think that matters right now as to policy are congressional Republicans. And while President Trump has very strong support from his own base, while the Democratic Party looks to be very low in the polls, there is no pressure right now on congressional Republicans to cross the aisle and give any help to the Democratic side. And as long as that remains the case, then I think his policies pretty much have a green light, at least from Congress.
Look, does this make sense, though, the way these numbers are set up like this? Because he's doing things differently, he's putting the more difficult policies first.
His numbers have held up this well with the nonstop coverage of all of the uncertainty, tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. Scott Bessent, in addition to the NBC poll, the Treasury Secretary was on with Kristen Welker, and just said, look, this is years and years of flawed policy in terms of government spending and everything else, and we are going to go off a cliff if we don't do something. So we need to detox now. So with all that in mind, the other thing I took issue with, you said he's got strong support with his base. I think his base used to be 30%. He's got 90% of Republicans. So that's not just his base. Those are Republicans in general, and only 4% from Democrats, which I think is kind of funny. I don't think Republicans are going to help Democrats, as you said. I don't think Democrats are in the mood to help Republicans either.
I'm taking my view, Joe, politically from the interview that Chuck Schumer gave to the New York Times over the weekend, which I think was interesting.
Well, Schumer did help Republicans.
Yeah, right. Or
the country,
however you want to. What Schumer said was the Democratic program was to put pressure on President Trump and his policies, which he says happened in 2017 and 2018, which hived off some Republican support. The House is very close, Senate less close, but that's their program, is to be able to say, you know, if the tariff policy ends up being very unpopular, if the inflation problem becomes an issue, if the views on the economy become an issue, and as we get closer to a congressional election, you could see some House members, perhaps some Senate members, crossing the aisle on some issues. But we're not anywhere near that right now.
Some people have said that that's why this is the better way to do things. Take the more complicated, less popular plans and put them now so that you can hopefully have more popular plans later. I don't know.
Well, that was the difference people said with the first term, right? You got the tax cuts, all the good stuff, and then you got the tariffs later, and the market kind of went flat on that tariff time. Now maybe you get this earlier. Look, before any of these numbers matter are the economic numbers. Right? Either you're going to have higher inflation or you're not. Either you're going to have stronger growth or you're not.
Either the jobs market will be strong or it won't. Those are the measurements.
I've long maintained, Becky, that you can't tell people how the economy is for them. As much as the Democrats were like, oh, but the economy is good, the numbers are good.
People will make their own decisions.
And people know. You ask people about their personal financial situation, about their views on the country, their views on the economy, and you just can't tell them what the reality is.
100%.